All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming along. My name is Greg Harford. I'm the Chief Executive of Retail NZ, and looking forward to having a chat here about sustainability today. Oops. Right, so look, I'm here to talk today about sustainability and the customer. But before I do that, I just want to give you a very quick overview of who Retail NZ is. Then I'm going to talk to you about what Kiwis are thinking, whose responsibility sustainability is, and what this means for retailers. I'm going to present to you today some information that we developed out of some research we did earlier in the year and presented to our sustainability forum a few months ago. But there's some really interesting developments in this space, and I'm look forward to sharing those with everyone on the call today. You'll be delighted to know that I'm not going to be talking about COVID-19 or the impacts of lockdown or anything like that. So trying to focus very much on the future and sustainability and how we can all work together to make the world a better place. So I guess just for those of you who don't know Retail NZ, we are the peak body for retailers in New Zealand. We're a membership organisation, we're not for profit. Our vision is to be asked first on anything retail, and ultimately our purpose is to help retailers succeed and strengthen NZ Inc. Now, I've just got a note here coming up in the comments. You can hear background in the office. I'm not sure, does that help? Does that help the audio there? Just want to get this right before I carry on. Okay, can everyone still hear me though? So, look, Retail NZ essentially does 6 things. We speak up for the sector, we lobby government. Our job is to work really hard to get government to listen and do the things that will help retailers run great businesses. We provide advice and information, particularly around HR issues. We do a lot of work in that sustainability space. And we provide news, intelligence and insight on what's going on in the market. We run events and networking in normal years. We provide some training and we offer savings for our members. So you can get some really great deals if you're a member of Retail NZ. And if you're not a member of us already, you certainly should be. So I'd encourage you to check out our website and sign up. But moving on to sustainability, as I say, we did some work earlier in the year with Colmar Brunton, now Kantar, to understand New Zealanders' thoughts towards sustainability in the retail sector. And really, there were some really interesting outtakes on it. First of all, and no surprise in this really, but half of New Zealanders, more or less, think it's highly important for retailers to be taking environmental and social responsibility seriously. There's a clear view. 48% think it's highly important, 38% think it's somewhat important. So the vast majority of Kiwis think that sustainability is really important, and it's something that we as in the retail sector need to be taking seriously and focusing on. There's some really interesting things we'll come to a little bit later about what customers are doing in their own spaces, but they certainly think that it's important that businesses take these issues seriously. Ultimately, that's going to flow through, you'd expect, into customer behaviour. One of the questions we asked was, how much are you personally prepared to change the retailers you buy from or the products you buy to be more sustainable? And not necessarily surprising, but the vast majority of New Zealanders, 86% of us, say that we will make changes in our lives to do the right thing. 16% of us say that we'll do whatever it takes to be sustainable. This is your hardcore environmentalist group who really want to do the right thing by the planet and by society, while 70% of us say that we want to do the right thing where it makes sense. So we're not necessarily going to put ourselves out to do the right thing, but if it is cost effective, if it's sensible to do, we'll make changes in the way that we buy. There's only a relatively small proportion of people who say that they're not interested in sustainability at all. They're much more interested in convenience and cost. So about 15% of the public is at that end of the spectrum. But that's not where the growth is. And I think if we track this over time, we'll certainly certainly expect to see greater interest in sustainability growing over the years. There is a bit of a gender gap here. Women are more likely than men to be wanting to change the retailers they're shopping from or the products they're buying. 91% of women say they'll make that change, while only 80% of men do. So if your business is particularly targeted at the females in our population, you might want to be slightly more focused on it than otherwise. But even if your business is kind of focused very much on males, there's still 80% of men are saying that they will personally be prepared to change what they're doing in order to make the world a better place. Overall, we asked about what the most significant issues were for New Zealanders in terms of sustainability. Really interesting, I think, is that there's focus. I mean, there's various things on this chart, but it boils down to two things. First, packaging, plastic waste, and non-recyclables are big issues for New Zealanders. They are the three, or the big package of things that really worry us. We're also worried about pollution of water. As an island nation with rivers and lakes throughout us, that's understandable as well. It's interesting though that global warming, climate change is actually seen as less of a sustainability concern for New Zealand. Our focus is very much on plastic, it's on packaging, and it's on waste, as well as pollution of waterways. What's really interesting is that despite the fact that 86% of New Zealanders are telling us in this research that they want to make change and they will personally do things to try and be more sustainable in their shopping, actually only a relatively small number have done so. 60% of New Zealanders are saying that they have, or 59% of New Zealanders say that they have made changes in their shopping behaviour, while 41% haven't. What's really interesting, I think, is that there's definitely a view coming through about the importance of shopping locally, using local products, and no longer using disposable products where that's possible. But one of the key things that has come through this research is that the number one thing we have done to, sorry, I'll just flick back a slide. The number one thing that we have done to try and be more sustainable as shoppers is to avoid plastics. So we've taken a call that we don't use plastic bags when we go grocery shopping, for example. That's a big thing that we're saying we have done to make the world a better place. But I'd suggest to you that actually that's not necessarily the biggest thing that we could have done, because obviously the government has banned single-use plastic bags anyway, and actually the environmental harm caused by those issues by plastic bags is relatively small in the grand scheme of things. It's important and it's really great that we're moving away from them, but it's not the biggest thing that we could do. I think there's going to be, over time, as New Zealanders head down the sustainability journey, I think we will see more and more change from consumers as they're demanding more and more sustainability in the products that they're buying. We will see more of a change away from disposable products and into reusable products. We will see more interest in compostability. We will see more interest in local products. It's a really interesting question, I think, as to at what point consumers will really start changing their behaviour. Retailers, as you all know, if you're a retailer on this call, retailers are ultimately very customer-driven people. And if customers continue to want products that perhaps aren't entirely perfect for the environment, we'll keep selling them. So at some point, someone's going to make a transition there, and I suspect it will be customers who lead the way. We asked customers through this customer research about whose responsibility they saw sustainability as being. And in line with kind of the obvious point, 60% of customers say that customers have the greatest influence over retailers in this space. That's really good because it shows that consumers understand the power that they have. The interesting thing, as I say, is when are they going to wield it in the way that they perhaps could. Ultimately, the biggest things that any of us can do for the planet are to stop eating rice, stop eating meat and dairy products, and to stop flying. And it's those things will have the biggest impact. But when customers will go there and want to make those changes, I think is a really interesting question. They're probably not quite there yet. We're very much focused still on the sustainability impacts of single-use plastics, even though there are much bigger things that we can do to try and avoid climate change in our daily lives. There's a really interesting question, of course, because if you want to be sustainable, you want to build a circular economy, you want to have products being sold, then recycled, reused and turned into something else. There's a lot of work going on inside government around product stewardship on various products. One of the things we asked customers, well, actually, how do you think the costs of that should be paid for? 43% of consumers say that they should pay up front when they're making the purchase. That is to say, there might be a levy on the new TV or the clothes even that they're buying. 26% say they should pay when they dispose of it or get rid of it, and a third of customers saying that local government or central government should pay, but of course that is ultimately saying that consumers should pay through taxation. This is really interesting though, I think, because it is a clear signal that actually a plurality of consumers would be really happy to pay an extra levy when they buy something in order to make sure that that product is going to be disposed of appropriately at the end of the day. We asked customers whether they think the government's doing enough to make New Zealand more sustainable. Clear view really that no, it's not. 50% of people responding to the survey say no, 29% don't know, and 46% of us say that the government's not being held accountable to meet New Zealand's sustainability goals. There is, as I say, a smaller proportion of people who think New Zealand's doing too much to try and be more sustainable, but it is a small group. 13% of us say that the government's doing too much, and really that's very consistent with the number I shared at the outset about the number of people who think that that retailers shouldn't be worrying about sustainability and that customers shouldn't either. Again though, the focus here and coming through in the comments from the research, it was all about banning single-use plastics and banning plastics. There's a clear view the government needs to do more in this space, and I think it does. There is a clear message for retailers that if you are in a position where you can sell products that don't come wrapped in plastic or that aren't made of plastic, you will ultimately be well positioned to harness the growing wave of consumer interest in sustainability. Again, a view coming through really that producer responsibility for disposing of products and reusing them and recycling them is really important. It's just as important for us as freshwater reform. So I think again, those retailers who are in a position where they can work with their suppliers to get products back to source, recycled and reused, are going to be those that are in the best position to harness that wave. There's clear consumer interest in that, and consumers, there's a growing view amongst consumers that they don't want to be having products that just go to landfill at the end of the day. Obviously, if we are thinking about sustainability and customers want us to be more sustainable, there's a real question about whether customers think that we are. Retail is a key part of the way we live. Obviously, everyone buys things from retailers, and it is important that we're seen to be sustainable. What's really interesting, we asked a little bit about which brands people associate with being sustainable. The Warehouse came in at the top there. 26% of consumers in the survey were saying that they spontaneously identified the Warehouse as a business with good sustainability credentials, followed by Countdown, New World and Eco Store. These were unprompted questions, so it's really interesting to see that the work that those stores have been doing to get the message out to their customers around sustainability is definitely having an impact. And of course, they're large businesses. Everyone on this slide is a relatively large business, and the sustainability aspect of their branding is clearly getting cut through with consumers. Sorry, I'll just flick past that slide. But I think the question is, what does it mean for retailers, and how should you communicate your sustainability credentials? Customers want to know, are we doing the right thing? Are we a sustainable business? We asked customers how they want to be getting that information. Nearly 60% say the retailer's website is a key way they're looking for that information. Again, and 57%, same number, say that they want to see certification or the relevant logo of a certification system on packaging. Those are the key things consumers are looking for, and I think that poses some challenges for retailers, particularly those that are selling products which may not be sustainably certified. That's obviously a work in progress, something that businesses will be working through with their suppliers over time. But those are the key points that customers are looking for. So I think if you've got a retail website, really good idea to tell your customers through that site about what you're doing in terms of sustainability. Really good idea to make sure that you are, in fact, taking steps to improve the sustainability journey of your business. Make sure that you're doing things in a way that does less harm to the planet. And if you're selling products which are certified, tell your customers. They really want to know. The other thing I guess really just to summarise all of this, I think there's probably four things I'd like to say. First, sustainability is really relevant and really important to consumers. Nearly half of us say it's highly important that our industry takes environmental and social sustainability seriously, and nearly 3/4 of us say that we want to do the right thing, like changing retailers, changing products, buying different things. The second point is that it's really, really important to communicate genuine and clear sustainability credentials. It's a great idea to use information on your website. Make sure you're telling your customers your story. It's a really good idea to use certified products and relevant logos where that's feasible, but also potentially worth thinking about in-store signage. Think about incorporating it into your advertising and your store design. Store design is actually really key in some ways, because if your store looks, feels, and in fact is sustainably fitted out, that's something that will go down well with customers. Of course, if you're an online retailer, that's a little more challenging, but social media is a key tool you can use to try and get that message out. There's two more sort of key points really that I just wanted to touch on. First, it is important to make it easy for customers to switch and choose more sustainable options. 85% of us say that we're personally prepared to change our shopping habits a lot or somewhat to be more sustainable. But just 40% of us, 41% of us can tell us exactly what they've done over the last couple of years to make those changes. So there's a barrier to being more sustainable, and customers are looking for us to make it easier for them to make those choices. Packaging, finally, just to sort of review that point, it is really important to think about the packaging of the products that you're selling and the packaging that you're giving customers to take their products away in or to send by courier. The number one concern for New Zealand customers is over packaging and non-recyclable packaging. We're worried about how much waste we're sending to landfill. We're worried about non-recyclable packaging, about plastic packaging getting into waterways. We're worried about the impacts of that on marine life. It's the key area where consumers are making changes to the way they shop, and it is something that it's not an easy win, but can be a relatively straightforward win for many businesses to be looking at. And obviously I appreciate it's not always straightforward to reduce the amount of packaging in products that you're selling. It involves working very closely with suppliers to make that happen. And of course, if you're a New Zealand retailer, often you've got relatively small volumes coming in. So you don't necessarily have negotiating leverage in the way that a larger business might with suppliers. That said, customers are looking for that, and I think it's part of an international trend. We are seeing globally businesses looking to demand reduced packaging from suppliers, so I'm hoping that will start to, the New Zealand view of that will start to add weight to what's happening internationally. So look, that was just a few highlights from the research that we commissioned earlier in the year. We do have quite a lot more detail that sits underneath all of this, and I'd be very happy to take any questions if anyone has got any. There's a chat feature on the Demio software here, so if there's anything anyone would like to ask, please just drop the question in there and we'll deal with it. Right. Looks like there's no questions coming in, so I appreciate that was a bit of an overview, a statistical overview of what's going on. A couple of questions now. Do you know if businesses actively remove packaging? Some business, well, I guess there's two parts to that question. First, are businesses actively working with their suppliers to get packaging out of the supply chain? Yes, a number of businesses are. It is difficult because, as I say, we don't necessarily have negotiating leverage being relatively small New Zealand businesses, but we do certainly know a number of retailers are working really hard with their suppliers to try and get them to either transition out of the really nasty packaging and replace it with packaging that has less impact. And in fact, I bought a lawnmower the other day, which came in a cardboard box with cardboard packaging inside, which was really good to see, and a big step away from the polystyrene that we might have seen in previous years. There are also businesses, of course, that actively remove packaging from product before it goes on store shelves. That's good to do, but it doesn't solve the problem because that waste is still being generated in the first place. Second question is there a manufacturing directory for New Zealand? No, there's not, I'm not aware of a specific directory of manufacturers in New Zealand, but there is obviously the Kiwi Corner at Gift Fair, which hopefully we'll be able to get back to next April. And Expo's also just made the point here in the comments that they run a show called Food Tech Pack Tech, which is a good place to start to review packaging. So look, thank you for joining us. I'm hopeful that that's been really interesting for everyone. Appreciate your time and look forward to catching up with you at Gift Fair next year, hopefully. Thank you very much.